Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct from Black Facts headquarters here in Kent, Ohio. All right. And a great getting up in the morning to you. It's 12 o'clock. That's right. 12 o'clock. High noon. And this is Doc Ock at noon and 9. Proverb for today is, before eating, open thy mouth. Before eating, open your mouth. Sounds like a good proverb from Mauritania. Okay, the country of Mauritania in West Africa. Extra for today. We're going to read something out of the back of this book here that we didn't read before. We're going to read a little bit about a man by the name of Daniel Hale Williams. Daniel Hale Williams. And here's the rendition of him. He did not look like that. He was much lighter than that. But that's how they decided to depict him in this book. So for all intents and purposes, he looked more or less like that. Daniel Hale Williams, 1856 to 1931. First successful operation on the human heart. So not the heart transplant, but just anybody doing an operation on a heart. Harken back to him. First successful one. Now, people have apparently tried maybe before him, were unsuccessful. Perhaps it was the word of Daniel Hale Williams' father. We must cultivate our minds. Or maybe it was Frederick Douglass's advice. The only way you can succeed is to override the obstacles in your way. By the power that is within you, do what you hope to do. That inspired him to the greatness he later achieved in the medical profession. Williams had been a shoemaker's apprentice, barber, musician, and a student of law. He finally decided on medicine as a career while in his early 20s in Janesville, Wisconsin. After his graduation from Northwestern University in 1883, he was retained as an instructor, an unusual honor in those days. He later became one of the founders of the interracial Providence Hospital and the first Negro nurses and interns, an intern training school in the United States. Okay, one of the founders of the interracial Providence Hospital and the first Negro nurses and interns training school in the U.S. Dr. Williams was also one of the founders of the National Medical Association and became its first vice president. In 1893, the year of his greatest achievement, he became the first man to successfully operate on the human heart. Dr. Williams was appointed by President Grover Cleveland to head the Freedmen's Hospital in Washington, D.C., where he founded another nurses training school and became a charter member and fellow of the American College of Surgeons. He performed many daring and history-making operations before his death on August 4th, 1931 in Idlewild, Michigan. Time cannot dim the greatness we found in Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. And by the way, it talked about him being one of the founders of the National Medical Association. How can you tell? That's a black organization. We had a joke about that you can always tell it's a black organization if it starts off with national instead of American. Okay. So like the American Medical Association, that's for all physicians in the United States, or at that time it was all white when it first was founded. But the National Medical Association was for the black doctors that couldn't belong to the American Medical Association. So just a side note there. All right. Meanwhile, today I said we were going to do one more chapter in Freedom Challenge. We're going to the appendix, or one of the 3 appendices. And the one we're looking at is, let's see, where is it at here? Here we go. Yep. Nope. Passed it. Must have been I thought it was a second one, but now no, it is a second one, but it's just real short. There it is. How to start homeschooling. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Now, homeschooling, I know to many of you out there, sounds difficult. Even more so if you do not have a college degree, may sound nearly impossible. So what I used to do when I was going to school on a regular basis, when I was in school every day with the children, one of the things I used to ask them this question. It sounds like a funny question, but just think about it for a minute. I would ask them, how did they learn to talk? Did they learn to talk by reading a book? And they would look at me very quizzically and they would say, no, I didn't learn how to talk by reading a book. Well, how did you learn how to talk? Well, let's see. I listened to my parents, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my older brothers and sisters. And then I saw what they were doing. I listened to what they were doing, and then I imitated. Those are the 3 steps. That's what learning really is. Learning is all about seeing, hearing, and then doing. 3 things, 3 basic steps. Okay? And that's how we all learned how to talk. Not one of us learned how to talk by reading a book. So it has nothing to do with reading. Learning has nothing to do with reading a book. Okay? That's a tool you could use, but it's not necessary. You could ask the very same question about how did you learn how to walk? Did you learn that from reading a book? No. Did you learn how to run from reading a book? No. Did you learn how to play games by reading a book? No. Maybe you read the directions. Probably that's about it. And some games, a lot of games we learned without reading a book. We didn't learn how to jump rope reading a book. We didn't learn how to do double dutch reading a book. So if you just keep thinking about it, there are many things that we all learned how to do before we ever were even introduced to a book or even thought about a book, and certainly before we could read a book. So that's not what homeschool is about. Homeschool is not about tying your child to a book or some worksheets or anything like that. Yes, those are tools you can use, might be helpful along the way, but that's not the essence of it. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you have children and they walk, talk, run, eat, use the bathroom, you've already started homeschooling. You are already there. You already are the teacher. You are the first teacher. Typically, that'd be the mother is the first teacher, because mothers spend a lot more time with the children typically than fathers do. That's just by nature. Okay. So you've already started homeschooling. So when we talk about homeschooling or home learning, this is not something that's foreign to you. And certainly it's not something that you should be afraid to do because you've already been doing it. So let's just keep that in mind as I read this very short section on how to start, as Grace Llewellyn puts it, how to start homeschooling. I'm taking it a step further and saying you're already there. You've started already. So this is just how to continue homeschooling for to teach your children some other skills that they don't have, they may or may not have yet. So here we go. Find out the legal requirements in your state. You can request a copy of the actual statutes from a legislator, or directly from your state Department of Education. Any reference librarian can get you their address or phone number. It's usually best not to ask school administrators about homeschooling legalities, as they are often misinformed, uninformed, or just downright hostile. Okay? So, and remember, this is 1996. Things have changed slightly, but in essence, what she's saying here, still relevant. Members of local homeschooling support groups are often eager to offer help and advice, and may be your best source of guidance, especially at first. They can also help you understand what the law actually means in practice. It may be rarely enforced or loosely interpreted. There are all kinds of groups, so don't give up if you don't feel comfortable with the first one you try. Some groups exclude non-Christians. Some include everybody. Some emphasize child-led unschooling. A few are all African American. Holt Associates regularly updates their excellent list of groups nationwide. See Appendix 3. You may want to read other books on homeschooling or attend conferences or workshops. If you want to stay informed about events or organizations, especially for Black homeschoolers, subscribe to the Drinking Gourd. I don't know if that magazine is still being published. Matter of fact, I think it's not, because I looked her up the other day. I don't think she's publishing that anymore. If you get on the mailing list of your state's larger homeschooling organizations using the Holt Associates list, you'll receive information about local events. But remember that ultimately, homeschooling is about trusting yourself. That's what I started out talking about. Trust yourself and your children to figure out what works for you all, for all of you. Don't let people push methodologies or expensive curriculums down your throat. If you really want a prepackaged curriculum, fine. Many people do, especially at first, to ease the transition. But you might be happier and wealthier in terms of your pocket, and your children happier and smarter if you pull your own curriculum together. Draw from library books, apprenticeships, or volunteer work. In other words, you can affiliate yourself with a museum, a veterinarian, a food co-op, a library, and frequently they will accept homeschoolers as volunteers in their organizations. Those are real skills. That's real information they're learning, no matter what level they start at. Even if they start off sweeping the floors, they're in the building. Okay. Perhaps a math textbook, an occasional foreign language or art class, independent projects of any sort, plenty of time to just think, and whatever else makes sense to you. For many families, the most difficult part of homeschooling is the first few months. It's often important to give your children a vacation from school to heal, rest, and let off steam before they're expected to start doing any academic work. Without this relaxed transition time, it's hard for many children to make a complete break from school and reclaim their natural love of learning. Again and again, homeschooling parents report a similar pattern. They nervously bite their lips for weeks while their children stare out the window or read romance novels or sleep all day. I know that doesn't sound like school, but ask them about their dreams when they wake up. Maybe you might want to have them write down their dreams. If they can't write, they can draw pictures of what they dreamt about and then explain it to you. Then amazingly, their innate human curiosity resurfaces, and they are truly motivated to learn and grow from within, not from without, from within. The boy who stares out windows begins to notice birds and ultimately ends up carrying out a serious project for the Department of Wildlife. That's from a true story. Documenting birds seen in a particular habitat. The girl who reads romance novels, shifts to historical novels, and then to U.S. history, and to memorizing the U.S. Constitution word for word. As you can tell from reading the essays in this book, there are a vast number of ways to learn outside of school, a number of which I've already mentioned to you. Don't worry if you're unsure which homeschooling style would be right for your family. Just start out with whatever feels comfortable, and then make it a point to stay flexible so you can adapt later in response to your own growing confidence and your children's growing interest. Even if you experiment with homeschooling for only 1 year, you will probably find that from that point forward, your children can take greater control over their own educations, even if they choose to return to school, quote unquote. Furthermore, this increased independence and responsibility often carries over into college, into adult work, and into all of life. End of chapter. Okay? Those are some very good notes, very good advice for someone who wants to begin homeschooling. But remember what I said in the beginning. We're going to go back to that just for a minute. You've already started. If your child knows how to eat, matter of fact, eat, sleep, put their clothes on, walk, talk, run. Who taught them how to do all those things? You did. You did. You taught your children how to do all those things. Now, if your child uses a lot of foul language, curses all the time, acts out in school or in certain situations, etc., guess what? That's a learned behavior also. That's not something that you cure with a pill. Oh, I take that back. You could cure it with a pill, but you probably need to be the one taking the pill. Take a chill pill, okay? Because your child is picked up. Remember what I said. Learning is what? 3 things. It's seeing, hearing, and doing. It's 3 things. That's it. That's all learning is. So they saw you when you cuss somebody out. They heard what you said, and then they did it. They don't have to know what it means. They just know this is something you do when you get mad. That's it. So if you don't want your children to do those kind of things, don't do it yourself around your children. Because guess what? They're just like sponges. They're going to pick it up. So if there's other things you do want your children to do, expose them to that. Make sure they're around that. Pull in family and friends, neighbors, other people that you may meet along the way to give you assistance on putting some other, piecing together your puzzle. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're putting something together that hasn't existed before. And the last thing I'm going to say today before I sign off, because I'm getting ready to do just that, is that if your child has an IEP, an independent educational program, that's what IEP stands for, or individualized educational plan, program, whichever way you want to describe that. Okay. If they have that and you're concerned because your child is quote unquote special ed and they have an IEP, all an IEP is an individualized educational plan or program. And that's what homeschooling is. That's what homeschooling is, except you and your child create the plan. That's the only difference between what they were, the counselors in school, the special ed teachers in school were coming up with, and what you come up with is that this is something that you come up with, an individualized educational plan. And in the end, it's going to benefit your children to know forever. Okay, just take it from me. It's going to benefit them forever in ways that you cannot imagine, and neither can they. So welcome to the world of homeschooling. Glad you've been here with us on this little trip that we've taken down memory lane, recalling the days when we homeschooled. I might have showed you some pictures in here earlier. I'll show you maybe a couple more of some of the homeschoolers in here. Let's see who I can find real quick. Let's see. Oh boy, they are difficult to find, but I know they're in here. There we go. Here goes one here of my oldest daughter. Okay. There's a picture there of my oldest daughter right there, Mary Sais, with 2 of her younger daughters or younger sisters. And Mary Sais, at 16 years old, she had her first child. And the first thing she told me is she was going to homeschool the child. And she was not homeschooled by me. She was homeschooled by her mother. And I really wondered how that was going to work out, because her mother and I had very different homeschooling styles. And, you know, we didn't live in the same household. We lived in different parts of the country, as a matter of fact. So I really wondered how that was going to work out. Last count, Mary has now 5 children. She's homeschooling them all. She's a stay-at-home mother. and her husband is not an engineer, a doctor, or whatever other kind of middle class, whatever you want to put on them, they ain't in that class. Okay? They're not in that class at all. There's some down home people, but they decided that it was worth it to put much of their energy and time into teaching their children. And so that's what they do. Okay, so she has 5 now, and yeah, she is amazing, an amazing teacher. Okay, she has her children reading by 3 years old, not 3rd grade, 3 years old. This is an addendum to everything else we already talked about. And then here's one more picture. That's me and Miri, and I think that's Nefertiti over there. Okay, so and there's many other pictures in this book. This is a great book to get if you can get your hands on it. I saw there's 1 copy left on Amazon. Don't wait till the last minute, but you could get some cheaper from me because I'm only selling them for $50 a piece right now, and I have about 5. You have to email me at kkhemet@gmail.com, or you can contact me right through YouTube, or you can message me through Facebook Messenger. Either way, and I will be able to get you a copy of the book, Freedom Challenge, African American Homeschoolers. Hey, this is Doc Ock at noon and 9 signing off. I hope your day goes really fine. Peace out, y'all.